Hello, music lovers and hi-fi enthusiasts. My name's Chris Martens, and today I'll be reviewing the T+A HA200 Headphone Amplifier and High-Performance DAC system. To begin, let me explain that the T+A HA200 is intended as a very, very high performance headphone amp DAC. I might stop short of saying that it's an all-out assault on state-of-the-art, but it's pretty close. Asking price is $9,650. And so one of the hallmarks of this component is that it is extraordinarily versatile. And to give you an idea of what I mean, first off, the analog section of the component is very low noise, very wide bandwidth, bandwidth out to about 200 kilohertz. So it's a serious piece of analog electronics above and beyond anything else that you might say about it. And it presents three outputs. One is a, I want to say 4.4 millimeter Pentacon connector. One is a 4-pin balanced XLR connector. And one is a 1/4 inch, typically tip ring sleeve plug. And all three of these are set up their own enabling on-off buttons to fire up the particular, part of the circuit that you want to use. Now, if I understood the manual correctly, and I think I did, T+A never does specify an absolute power output level for the device. But one thing they do offer as a helpful hint is that it provides pure Class A outputs up to 700 milliamperes of output, and it presumably shifts to from pure Class A to Class AB at that point to go even higher. My point here is that the company is very much purity focused, and that's sort of the end in view behind this whole design. Now, let me shift gears here to move on to the digital section of the device. And to give you an idea, when I say that it's versatile, it has one AES EBU input with capabilities out to 192 kilohertz and 24 bits. It has two SPDIF inputs, or actually I should really say four, in that it gives you two standard coaxial, RCA type plug inputs and two optical Toslink inputs. Then it gives you a BNC 32 connector and two USB DAC inputs. So, and those can go clear up to 768 kilosamples per second via PCM, or all the way up to DSD 1024. Now, if all those options weren't already enough, but wait, there's more. So the HA200 also provides two HDMI inputs and an HDMI output with ARC, and it has a Bluetooth input that supports A2DP, AVRCP, aptX HD, SBC, and AAC. So it's really got pretty much all bases covered. Now, the DAC section is designed so that it really has separate DSD and PCM capabilities. So the PCM section is described by T+A as double differential quadruple converter capabilities with 4 32-bit sigma delta D to A converters per channel. Then it also has the T+A true 1-bit DSD converter, and impressively there is a T+A signal processor which provides synchronous upsampling with 4 selectable oversampling algorithms, FIR short, FIR long, Bezier with IIR impulse corrections, straight Bezier filter, and then 2 non-oversampling filters as well. So in terms of controlling the subtleties of the sound of the unit, you have a lot of options, and the more resolving your headphone is, the more easily you can sort through those different filters until you find one that, in your judgment, is most accurate, most neutral, and most musical. And what I found with using very high-end headphones with this amp DAC was that you could easily sort through and kind of go close, no cigar, close, no cigar, Goldilocks, here's the perfect filter to use. And since they're easy to select, you could, if so motivated, actually go through and pick filters track by track. That's a little too much work for me, I have to admit. But it's well worth figuring out which filter marries up best with your headphone of choice. Now, continuing this theme of flexibility, 2 very interesting control or sound shaping options that T+A gives you is first a tone control and loudness contour control that you can engage or disengage, but once they're engaged, you can then adjust bass, treble, and loudness contouring all the way from pretty heavy loudness contouring to minimal in several steps. And you can, of course, just defeat all of the above and not use them. Then there's a separate menu button you can invoke, and this gives you, first off, access to those filters I mentioned. So you can step in and say, I want to play with the filters, and then dial right from the faceplate of the unit which of those filters you'd like to try with real-time switching, so you can hear instantly what a change in the filter will do to the sound. But you can also set the unit for the impedance of your headphones, and there are an array of options starting at 8 ohms and going up to 80 ohms. And I think the implication is that if your headphones are higher impedance than 80 ohms, you just set 80 ohms and go for it. So the menu switch on the faceplate of the unit is sort of your entryway to a range of sound controls. So you have balance adjustment. You can go in and separately from the tone control adjustments already mentioned, you can adjust bass or treble levels. You can pick any of the 6 filter settings that I mentioned. You can go back and adjust loudness if you want to. You can select the impedance of your headphone. And the beauty of all this is that you kind of have instantaneous access to all the sound processing tricks the DAC/front end section can do, and hear their effects in real time. So it's not one of those, well, let's throw a switch and then go back and try some listening. This happens right while you're doing listening. So it's a very, very versatile unit, one that I found made it very easy to pick settings that were complementary to various headphones that I used during my tests.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tom Martin, Executive Publisher of The Absolute Sound and a reviewer here on the T+A HA YouTube channel. I'd like to invite you to take advantage of a special offer that we have. You can sign up for our weekly newsletter simply by entering your email address either in the form you'll find on screen, or you can click on the link in the show notes below and enter your email address. Twice a week, actually, we will send you audio reviews, written reviews that you won't find here on YouTube, music reviews, and our famous Editor's Choice and Product of the Year awards. This allows you to find the best equipment in audio, as well as read our extensive and authoritative review coverage of hundreds of audio products. We would enjoy having you as subscribers. And now back to the show.
So how does this work out in terms of the sound of the unit? Well, a couple factors I'll toss out to you straight away. It has a very refined, delicate, and detailed treble presentation, a lively, expressive, dynamic mid-range presentation, and when you have filters set just so for your headphones, the bass response of the thing is just excellent. And in fact, the one thing that happens is that when you're playing with the filters, you often find, if you're sort of a bass connoisseur, and I fancy myself to be one to some extent, you actually wind up being able to discriminate between, oh, this filter works really well for extremely low percussion, whereas this filter works just great for Fender jazz basses, versus, well, this filter works perfectly for concert bass drums and timpani. So the bass performance of the unit is, to a degree, governed by the filter settings you choose to apply. But the point is, since all of this is something you can evaluate in real time, you just put on a track that you know well and settle in to listen to, for instance, a given part of the audio spectrum, and in fairly short order, you can tell which filter works best for which part of the audio spectrum. And that's actually one of the real delights of this unit, is that it doesn't have just one sound. It has many, and they're under your control. Now, in the midst of all this, one thing I should point out, and I guess I regard it as a drawback to a degree, especially for a unit in this price range and overall capability range, is that it does not make direct provisions for serving as a preamp to drive powered speakers or power amplifiers and so on, which seems a little bit odd because the sound quality of the unit is so good. I could easily understand people wanting it to use it that way, but you go cruising through the elaborate back panel of the unit and discover, no single-ended audio outs and no balanced audio outs either. all is not lost because, I don't know if you'll be able to see this in the frame, the XLR balanced output headphone connector, it can be supplemented via a T+A accessory, which is a balanced 4-pin connector to dual RCA plug output cable. So in that way, you do have a means of using the unit as a preamp if you want. But still, I think some people would be happier if there were actual analog outputs on the back of the unit so you could just use it as a preamp or not as you saw fit. Having mentioned that T+A does not explicitly state the power output capabilities of the unit, one thing you might well ask is, well, if I present it with a fairly difficult to drive load, what happens? And the answer is probably best summarized by Rolls-Royce when they are being a bit tight-lipped about their own power specifications, where they look at you with a wry smile and say, power output adequate. And that's really, truly the way of it. With any of the headphones I tried, the HA200 could drive them to volume levels that were beyond levels I would want to listen at. And the unit had plenty of dynamic sock behind it too. So it isn't that it can play loud, which it can, but it's that it can play loud well. It does a wonderful job of what I like to call giving you the your head is plugged into the recording console experience, where you just are able to go in there and listen to every single element of a track to your heart's content, and you just can go deep as much as you want, as often as you want. Now, let me see if I can give you some actual playback examples. One that is, by the way, a recording I recommend to all of our viewers and listeners is Niels Fromm's Chant. This is a solo piano piece, but this is no ordinary piano. This is actually a very special piano that is, well, that has been designed to transcend the limits of piano sound reproduction. And to that end, the soundboard of this thing is really big. And it's so big that the piano basically positions the soundboard vertically with the keyboard up on a platform that you access, I gather, via a ladder. And the resulting sound is so pure and so clear and so powerful that many people, upon first hearing the recording, would swear that's gotta be a synthesizer. But no, the sound you hear on Chant is absolutely the acoustic sound of this particular piano. And the beauty of Chant as a piece of music is that it has this deep, dark middle of the night meditative quality that just pulls you in with subtle textural details galore, but with power and depth and high frequency finesse. And if I didn't mention it earlier, the track Chant comes from Niels Fromm's album Solos. And it's a wonderful piece of music. I recommend it highly to everyone, if only to just have the experience of saying, you won't be able to hear it every day, but it's amazing to know what a piano can do, what it's really capable of doing. Just a remarkable piece of music. Now, another that I think I'd mention, just because it has such a profound vibe, is the track Burnable from Larry Carlton and Robin Ford, which is sort of a jazzy blues, but this is not dank and dirty barroom blues. This is sort of cerebral blues, no less powerful than the other kind, but really invigorating. And so you can hear all the intricacies of Carlton's guitar technique through this amp. It's a beautiful thing to hear. So, to sum up, I think this is a very successful amp if you don't need it to be your preamp. Even if you do, as I mentioned, there's a kind of cable accessory workaround. But the main thing is this amp can happily drive just about any headphone I can think of, provided it's not, of course, an electrostatic headphone, but that's a whole different category of activity. And it has reliable, very high level sound quality. It's an expensive amp. Frankly, makes it one of the more expensive headphone amps on the market. But if you happen to want to make a choice where you can say, well, that's one choice that's done and dusted for pretty much the foreseeable future. This is a do-it-all amp DAC, and a do-it-all amp DAC that can run with hard-to-drive headphones, easy-to-drive headphones, you name it. This is your solution. So let me simply say, well done, T+A. Just in case you're wondering, by the way, T+A stands for Theory Plus Application, specifically with respect to audio electronics. So these guys have introduced a different kind of T+A, and one that we can all get behind.